Greetings and welcome to this edition of
Positronic Hypersonic.
I'm Barry P. Cook, and I'm here to talk to you about the latest episode of Doctor Who. It was called 73 Yards. And as the episode starts, the Doctor and Ruby arrive in Wales, apparently back in 2024, and soon stumble upon some kind of dream catcher on the ground, which might be some kind of memorial to someone called Mad Jack, before the Doctor just up and disappears and Ruby finds herself locked out of the TARDIS. Ruby then encounters a strange figure, a woman, and she tries to communicate with her, but before she can get to the spot where the person is standing, they move further away in the blink of an eye. So Ruby walks off, seemingly trying to find where the Doctor could have gone, and the person follows them, and even appears both behind and in front of them alternatively as she's walking away from where she left the TARDIS, as snow begins to fall. She then encounters a cross-country walker, who she asks to please communicate with the mysterious figure for her when she catches up to where she is, and to ask her if she's seen the Doctor, but whatever the strange figure says to the cross-country walker freaks her out, and she goes away, hurriedly and obviously upset, sending Ruby running even further away. Ruby then finds herself outside a pub with the strange woman still following her. There she books a room for the night and converses with various patrons of the pub, and when one said pub patron goes out to talk to the woman again, she says something that makes the guy go running off. Ruby learns that the thing that she and the Doctor accidentally walked into is called a fairy circle and about someone called Mad Jack, who apparently wasn't a good dude, and that when she broke the circle, she broke the spell that was supposedly keeping him deceased. In fact, the patrons briefly prank Ruby into thinking that he's going to return and start killing people. Sometime later, Ruby is asked to leave the pub, and she goes to the TARDIS and talks to it, saying that she'll just go home, seeing as she's in her own time, and that maybe she'll see the Doctor again if he comes back. She indeed does take a train home, but keeps seeing the woman standing out in various fields and plains that she passes all the way back to where she lives. Ruby explains to her mother about the woman, and her mother tries to help her figure out what's going on, and just as that's happening, we get a brief appearance of Mrs. Flood. Unfortunately, things go the same way they went before, and whatever the woman says to Ruby's mother makes her run screaming before she gets in a black cab and goes away from Ruby while giving her a disdainful look. Sometime later, after Ruby tries to contact her mother repeatedly, she finds herself locked out of her place with her mother inside, and when she talks to her mother through the door, her mother is somewhat unkind to her, saying that she's not her daughter and that her own mother didn't even want her. A year later, Ruby meets with Kate Lethbridge-Stewart, who says she'll try to help her, but when Kate's team approach the woman, she manages to scare them off as well, despite all their training in filters and shields and things. 15 more years pass with the woman still following Ruby. Upon seeing a politician on TV, Ruby realizes that he's Mad Jack, whom the Doctor had previously told her about, though by his real name, since in 2046, which is apparently the current year at this point, he was known by the Doctor to have been the worst prime minister in history. So, in order to get close to him, Ruby volunteers for his campaign, and he winds up getting elected prime minister. Ruby finds out from another woman working on the campaign that he is indeed a monster. She also learns that it seems he plans to buy Pakistan's nuclear arsenal and use it. So she brings herself within 73 yards of the prime minister, since that's the distance that the woman has always kept from Ruby. And sure enough, the lady shows up right next to the prime minister and speaks to him, causing him to run away, at which point he resigns the prime ministership. Another 40 years pass, and Ruby visits the now moss-covered TARDIS back on the cliff in Wales at 80 years old, finding the woman still there. Apparently, Ruby never figured out who her birth mother was and never saw the snow again after the prior time. Later, as elderly Ruby is in bed at some kind of care home or hospital, the woman shows up in her room, and we learn that the woman is 80-year-old Ruby, visiting herself in the past. Her initial visit now occurring just before her younger self and the Doctor almost stepped in the fairy circle, preventing them from doing so, making it such that everything we just saw never actually happened. So I really enjoyed this episode, even though the Doctor isn't in it, and he's been one of the big reasons I enjoyed the episodes up to this point. But I also have enjoyed Ruby quite a bit in all the episodes up to this point, so his absence wasn't even really felt. And part of that is also due to the fact that I think the story was so compelling, because, it's a mystery. You don't know what's happening. Who's this woman? It's very creepy, and it grabs you, and you just want to see the story unfold. And by the end, you get this twist that this thing that was happening to Ruby her whole life, basically, was just herself trying to keep her from stepping in the fairy circle so that Mad Jack, and you think, why is he already dead in 2024 if he wasn't even prime minister until 2046? And if in the end none of it ever happened, how come the Doctor knows about him in 2024 originally? And I think the answer comes down to the fact that on the cliffs in Wales, where according to one of the pub patrons, the rules don't apply because it's the demarcation point between the sea and the earth. And time, is
like a big ball of wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey stuff.
And so I think that's what explains all of that. And that's mind bending and that's cool. Also, you're left with questions at the end. And normally, I don't like when a storyteller leaves you with questions at the end. They go, God, that's annoying. Why can't they answer all the questions that they pose through their narrative before the narrative is up? And it drives me crazy. But this time, I think it added to the heft of the episode and the freakiness of the episode that you don't know the answers to these questions. And the questions are, where did the Doctor go? Why did he never come back until the timeline was undone? How did Ruby visit herself in the past? How did she gain the ability to time travel? What was old Ruby saying to everyone that scared them so much? Who originally laid the fairy circle? Was it old Ruby at some point in time after Mad Jack's death? Which would mean that the circle was there in the past before she actually put it down, because again,
time is a big ball of wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey stuff.
We don't know. And I think that just makes the episode more mind-blowing and therefore better than if we necessarily knew the answer to every one of those things. I thought this episode was reminiscent of a lot of past Doctor Who. The best Doctor Who there's ever been has been episodes like this. So I thought that was great. Russell T Davies is the man. And I think anyone who continues to call this show garbage, which they have done right up until, after last episode aired, is just full of shit now. They're just full of shit, and that's all there is to it. What I hope doesn't happen is that they say, well, the gay guy wasn't in this one at all, so it was actually good. That would really bother me if they only liked it because the gay guy wasn't actually in it. Because, of course, that's dumb. This episode would have been just as good if the Doctor were in it, if they had him be part of the story somehow. But anyway, my point is, this season is very good. This is probably the best episode yet. And anybody who says that this season is garbage now they're just full of shit. They were full of shit before, but this proves it. This episode is just fantastic. There's nothing bad you can say about it. It was just great, classic, mind-bending, crazy Doctor Who. And I really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to next week quite a bit. But that's really all there is to say. So I'm going to get out of here. I'll be back to do a breakdown and review of the next episode once it's released. Until I return, I wish you peace and long life.